The Glock 9mm handgun has been around since the early 80s, been in this country since about the mid 80s. The Glock 19 was introduced just a few years after the Glock 17. A lot of people say this is the perfect handgun. I tend to agree with that to an extent. It is the perfect foundation for the perfect handgun. You've got a nice compact size you can fairly easily carry, concealed. 15 plus 1 in the chamber, 10 plus 1 if you live in a communist state. Who are you? I'm Tennessee Matt. You're not Tennessee Matt, I'm Tennessee Matt. Well, obviously I'm Tennessee Matt. Got the hat, sunglasses, cigar. You are not Tennessee Matt. Tennessee Matt would never carry a 1911. Why would I carry a Glock? You've got plenty of capacity in 1911. It's a 45. Alright, now that we've got that imposter out of the way, let's talk 1911 versus Glock. Probably never have two guns been more highly debated than maybe AR-15 versus AK-47. But these two guns, like those two rifles, both have their merits. Both have their strong points and their weak points. With the 1911, you've got over 100-year-old design that has been improved upon, but has been depended on by many, many thousands, tens of thousands, probably millions of people over the years for self-defense, target shooting, whatever. It is a very ergonomic design in my opinion, and to be 100 years old with concealed carry being such a big thing these days, that design right there is still so thin, especially this Ruger with the thin grips it has. I can much more easily conceal this gun than I can this gun. They're about the same size. 1911 has a little bit longer of a grip even, but this one does print a heck of a lot more than this one. So thinness does go a long way. And granted, you can get both guns in a variety of calibers, but the classic standard calibers, in my opinion, 9mm, 45. That's what they were both introduced in. So I like to think that as their original calibers, so to speak. And we could argue all day about bullet technology and all that jazz. That's another video for another day. We're just talking standard stuff today. Both guns I've had issues with. The 1911 has had a few more issues than the Glock, but I have had Glocks jam on me from time to time. Mostly with either gun, that's an ammo issue. With the 1911, that could be a magazine issue. Glock magazines are known to be utterly reliable. That's why a lot of manufacturers, specifically one that I can think of off the top of my head is Ruger with their new PC carbine. They design guns around taking the Glock magazine. So there's one advantage to the Glock. Back to the 1911. The manual of arms I particularly enjoy. They both have what you could call a single action trigger, more or less. I know the Glock is like a safe action, double action, whatever. But with both guns, it's one thing I particularly like about them. You get the same trigger pull each time. It's not like you know, a CZ75, Beretta 92 FS, M9, whatever, where you got double action and then single action. Granted, I've not shot a lot of double action, single action guns. That is something you have to, you know, train with, have that mentality with, that first trigger pull is going to be heavy and then you're going to have light. But I like just having the same trigger pull each time. So generally in 1911, from the factory, you're going to have a really good, crisp trigger. With my Glocks, I'm not really into all the fancy aftermarket triggers and all that stuff. If that's your thing, cool. The only thing I generally do to a Glock trigger is put a 3.5 pound connector in there. I find that it doesn't really reduce the pull to 3.5 pounds, but it just smooths it up tremendously. It takes that crispness out of it, so to speak. Still crisp, it's just smoother. So let's put some rounds through both of these, just see how they feel. And one other caveat with these two guns, you can get them both in different sizes, depending on your preference. I prefer a commander size 1911. It's got 4¼ inch barrel, full grip, still conceals easily for me like we discussed. But as far as Glocks, my carry preference, ultimate carry preference, 26. For me, this conceals and carries the best, besides the 43 for summer carry. Of course, it's a little bit thinner, but for just general everyday carry, I do prefer the 26 as opposed to the 19. But if you want a bigger gun than the 19, you can get the 17. 17 plus one in the magazine. Now, just purely speaking from a statistics point of view, Glock 19 is technically overkill. 15 rounds. Statistically, the average self-defense situation is over within 3 rounds. So if you follow that logic, then a 5-shot revolver would be more than enough. But I don't know anybody that's ever been in a gunfight that says, man, I just wish I had less ammo on me. Take that and do with it what you will. Now, I tend to carry both guns, Glock and 1911. That's about the only guns I carry. I have a revolver, the little 5-shot 38 Special Smith & Wesson J-frame that I'm sure you've seen. I just don't have the holster back for it yet. And it's more of a summer carry, backup gun type of situation anyway. But this 1911, with it being a lightweight frame, alloy frame, stainless steel slide, even on this leather holster here, if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of G-code holsters for my Glocks. With the 1911, you gotta carry in a leather holster. And one strong point that I see on a 1911, magazines just shoot out amazingly. Sometimes with my Glocks, I mean, they do come out, but in some situations I've had them where they've been a little bit stiff in there and you have to help it a little bit. Not a big deal, but just something to look out for. And going back to the ammo debate, it is hard to argue physics, and depending on your viewpoint on ammo, self-defense, all that, the 45, being a 230 grain bullet, moving slower, it's going to hit your target sort of like a sledgehammer, I guess you could say. The 9mm, with bullet technologies that have advanced, is not something to argue against, in my opinion. But it is hard to argue with, 230 grains of lead coming at you. So Glock versus 1911. Is there a clear winner? I personally don't think so. It's whatever your situation warrants, whatever you're comfortable with, and whatever you shoot well. I tend to shoot the Glock just a little bit better, but I'm not too shabby with the 1911 either. Thanks for watching.